In this video, I'll be breaking down everything you need to know about the current cost of living in Columbus, Ohio. We'll go through various costs like housing, transportation, food, and more. My name is Jeni Reitz, and I'm a realtor in the Columbus area. And one of the things I love about this city is how affordable and accessible it is, in addition to being a cultural hub for the American Midwest. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about Columbus and the living part before we get into the cost part. Columbus is, of course, the capital of Ohio. Population-wise, it's similar to San Francisco, Charlotte, or nearby Indianapolis. That makes it by far the biggest city in Ohio. Columbus is literally more than twice the population of the next biggest Ohio city, which is Cleveland. Traditionally, we've been a manufacturing town, but today we are also a fashion hub. Columbus is unique in how connected and centralized it is too. Actually, a recent study by a group called 3Scale Research found that Columbus, Ohio is the most centrally located city in the country, period. You are right in the middle of the Midwest and numerous other major cities. In 2018, Forbes ranked this the #1 rising city for startups. Young professionals are flocking to our cities, and many of them are coming straight out of The Ohio State University, which sits dead center in the heart of Columbus. The city is quite diverse, and there's a very diverse range of things going on here all the time too. We've got lots of music venues, art, different museums. We have an esteemed symphony orchestra too. We're a major culinary destination, so you get tons of farm to fork local food. We've got craft beer. We've got a brewery district. Major festivals happen year round here too. Rock on the Range, Oktoberfest, the massive Ohio State Fair. There's also a ton of nature here, including Ohio's only national park, Cuyahoga, where there you'll find waterfalls and caves, as well as great places to bike and hike in the summer, and great places to ski and snowboard in the winter. So what does the cost of living in this dynamic place look like? How does it compare to other places in the US? Well, to give you the broadest possible overview to start out, one source I found gave an index for the state of Ohio as a whole that measured out to be 82.6. What does that mean? Well, the national average is 100. So out of the 50 US states, Ohio is definitely more affordable than average. The same source scored Columbus at 85.5. So interestingly, Columbus is still much more affordable than the average US city, but slightly less affordable than the average Ohio city. But that's just a very, very general idea. Let's dive into some of the specific reasons why this might be. One of the first things anybody looking into a new city wonders is, what about the rent? What are those costs like? Even if your goal is to eventually buy a home, short-term renting is probably going to be something you end up having to do to look into in the very beginning. And it's a great place to start talking about the cost of living here. According to niche.com, the median rent in Columbus is $961. Of course, you can easily find more expensive options than that. I can help you do that. But you can also find plenty of less expensive options too. Rentals are really quite available in the city at the moment. And as of September 2021, there were close to 1,000 rentals listed on Zillow. Plenty of studios, one-bedroom places will go for lower, sometimes as low as $500 a month. You also get the special benefit of tons of variety. There are high-rise apartments downtown, there are condos and townhouses outside of the downtown area. There's single-family living houses for rent, especially in areas like the University District. And there are spacious homes also in quieter residential neighborhoods like Clintonville, Old Town East, and others. So you're not really limited to one type of environment here. I tend to think of the city as almost having 4 quadrants, primarily based on the highways and how they divide up. Expensive places are more common up in the northwest corner. South of 70, things tend to be a little bit more affordable. In general, the west side of the city tends to be more spacious and suburban than the east side. As as for actually buying a home, things can get a little trickier. At this time, one could argue that Columbus might be a little bit overinvested in. It's harder to be ROI positive now than it was even just a few years ago. Both the population and the value of property simply have been racing upwards, much faster than the national average. In fact, since 2010, the population of Columbus has grown over 16%, and just in the last year, property values have risen no less than 18.2%. Zillow estimates that in August 2021, the median home value was $213,000. But the way things are going, that number is going to be significantly higher before you know it. Another complicating factor is that Columbus real estate is really block to block to block in terms of developmental differences. But maybe the toughest point for potential investors is on the subject of taxes. Ohio has the 13th highest property tax rate in the US. Franklin County, where Columbus actually sits, also has the third highest property tax in the state of Ohio, 2.05%. This is an expensive place to own property. There's also the added stress of potential damage due to natural disasters. Now listen, Columbus does, after all, reside partially in the infamous zone known as Tornado Alley. Many Columbus properties also are in FEMA flood zones, which can affect property value significantly even if no flood actually ever comes. Despite these risks and potential downsides, Columbus, though, is still a great place to buy a home. As I said, there are tons of options and tons of variety, great prices overall compared with the rest of the nation, and of course, a fabulous, booming city full of industry, culture, and action all around. It's important to be informed about some of the drawbacks, as it is with any place, but absolutely do not let these things discourage you. So let's talk about public transportation in Columbus. It won't take long because, quite frankly, there isn't really much of that kind of system. There's a bus system that gets mixed reviews, and the rare locals who actually use it, again, it's not all that great. Supposedly, public transportation gets better the closer you are to Ohio State campus, but to be honest, I'm not really the right person to ask that. I don't really ride the bus here, and I'm not hanging around campus too much anymore. What I can tell you, though, is that although you need a car to live here, this is absolutely a fantastic place to own a car. Gas is cheap. In September 2021, it was roughly $3 a gallon. Sometimes it's even a little less. Locals would probably tell you this is expensive though. Although car insurance is also really cheap. Most people in the US pay somewhere between $550 to $1,600 in car insurance. Here, the range is more like $300 to $1,000. Why is it so cheap? Well, you might assume it's because people are just safer drivers here, but listen, that's not my experience. I kind of fear for my life on the highways. I'm sure that's the same everywhere though, but it's also not what the Ohio State Highway Patrol reports in its annual statistics, which show accidents happening at roughly the same per capita rate all over the country. The truth is, I really don't think there's a simple explanation for Ohio's low insurance costs. A lot of factors go into it. What companies are here, credit scores, age of the population, the fact that prices in general are lower here on average. It goes on and on. The important news though is that owning a car here and transportation in general is pretty affordable. One estimate from livingcost.org put the average transportation cost living here at $125 a month. Another major expense to worry about, no matter who you are, is food. Of course, Columbus is an absolutely spectacular place for eating, but in terms of what the costs are, it obviously varies. No matter where you live, you can save money by shopping at the grocery store and cooking at home, or you can burn a hole in your wallet eating out every night. That makes a much bigger difference on month-to-month cost than where you happen to be. With that being said, both groceries and restaurant prices tend to be fairly similar to other cities in Ohio and cities in the Midwest. So, that is to say, slightly less than what you'll find in coastal cities like San Francisco or New York, but slightly more than other areas in the middle of the country. The glaring exception when it comes to Midwest food costs is Chicago, which really isn't all that surprising. Other than that, consider most Midwest cities to be roughly similar when it comes to expenses like eggs, milk, bread, dinner out for two, that sort of thing. Okay, so now let's look at taxes. I don't know anybody who gets excited about this part of a cost of living video, but living here, you will have to pay them, and you might as well know what to expect. The state of Ohio has a sales tax rate of 5.75. However, if you live in Columbus, sales tax is significantly higher at 7.5%. For the United States, that's pretty high, but it's nowhere near the highest in the country. If you live in Louisiana, for instance, you're paying almost 10% sales tax. But then again, if you live in Alaska, you pay less than 2%. And if you live in Oregon or Montana, you don't pay any sales tax at all. As for income tax, things get a little complicated here. So be warned, as of 2021, Ohio now has a bracketed income tax system where you may pay anywhere from 2.7% to almost 4% depending on your income. Believe it or not, that's actually a cut from what was imposed this year too. There used to even be a higher bracket paying close to 5% and even a bracket that paid 0.1% or so more previously. Another problem a lot of Ohio newcomers don't realize, myself is included in this, is that what you pay also depends on where you live. This is thanks to a really joyful organization that everyone loves, our girl Rita, RITA, the Regional Income Tax Agency. Rita has a nasty reputation for being complicated, hard to figure out, and then surprising people by telling them, oh wait, hey, you haven't been filing your taxes correctly or paying the right amount. Pay up and we'll also add some extra fees like penalties and interest, just as a way of saying thanks. It is not awesome, and to be honest with you, it's even less awesome when you consider the fact that other states like Nevada and Texas don't even bother with this income tax stuff at all. Though you could also make the point that as high as 4 or 5% sounds, it's not even close to some of the other states in the country. For example, if you live in California, you could easily pay 13%. So let's zoom out a bit and recap. The cost of living in Columbus, Ohio is ultimately a bit of a mixed bag, to be honest with you. On the one hand, you have lower prices pretty much across the board. You also have tons of availability in terms of housing and tons of variety when it comes to the type of place you can get. And then at the same time, property investments can be risky because of the exploding growth and other factors like flood zones and natural disasters. You also have got to deal with what are fairly overall high taxes that are also kind of complex and confusing. The types of trade-offs exist basically everywhere though. Seriously, if you get a sweet deal in one area, it's probably going to be compensated for in another area. And at the end of the day, it's about what makes the ideal combination. I can tell you that living in Columbus, we're a thriving, beautiful city to live in. Millions of people choose to call the Columbus metro area home. And if you like affordable gas, affordable insurance, affordable housing costs, and lots of things to do, see, and eat, you don't mind paying taxes, and sometimes extreme weather, this could be the place for you.